Good morning, good morning. This is Lady Danny from Landed Gentry coming to you live from the Royal Borough of South Philadelphia. Today I'm actually going to show you how to make a simple syrup with pine. And this simple syrup will be a quick way to zhuzh up your cocktail recipes if you're having any holiday parties. Okay, here in my kitchen today. The reason that I wanted to do this was, number one, because I had to make this anyway. We had discussed last week about pine having a number of benefits. Oh, I forgot to do this. Hold on. Am I lit now? Yeah, okay, there we go. So a little festivity going on here. So last week I talked about pine and how it has a number of health benefits, including really good for the respiratory system. It also is great for helping to lift depression. It can also help with memory, and it's full with antioxidants and your vitamin C's. So it's a good thing to make. However, you're not going to make this out of your standard Christmas tree because A, that may not be pine. A lot of trees, especially in this East Coast area, tend to be fir, like Douglas fir or spruce. So you do need to make sure that it's pine. And one of the things that we talked about last week when we discussed it was if you're dealing with real pine, they will have these little bunches of pine needles that are called farcicles. Okay, and if I pull off one little bunch, each little bunch is attached separately, as you can see, to the stem, and each of those little bunches should have anywhere between 2 and 5 needles. This has 5 needles, so we know it's real pine. Also, because I sourced this from a small farm off of Etsy, this is all organic, and this is a ton of it. I think I got a pound of it, and I'll be using it for a number of other things, including possibly making some of this pine simple syrup to give away. But I wanted to show you how easy it was to do this and how you can apply this to making other simple syrups. So let's get started. First of all, what you need, it's a very basic recipe, okay? It's 1 part water to 1 part sugar. So in this case, what I just have in my pan here, let's try and move you down. So I've got leaks going because one of the things that I've found is if you like a cream soup but you want to keep calories down, if you boil leeks in, well, this is homemade chicken stock, I can then puree that and it makes a really nice creamy texture, which is perfect if you want a cream of mushroom soup, or if you want to do like a clam chowder but you don't want to use all the cream. It's like naturally creamy. It has that nice mouth-rounded slickness that you want in a cream soup, but without all the fat and calories. This is my pot. In this pot, I already have 2 cups of water. I have an electric kettle, so I set it to the boil. Thank you. And then to that, I'm going to add an equal amount, which in this case is 2 cups of granulated sugar. Now, whenever I do this with sugar, there is always somebody that says, but Danny, I can't have sugar because I'm diabetic. I'm really sorry, sweetie, but in order for a syrup to preserve and to have all those qualities of a syrup, it does have to be sugar. Equal or stevia and those guys will not work. They may give you a semblance of a syrup, but you're not going to have the same kind of ability to be able to keep it long term. I already had boiling water going, so I am adding the sugar to that. You want to stir so that everything becomes incorporated. That's really an important thing. And you are using sugar? What about things like sugar in the raw? Turbinado sugar, if you want to deal with it, that's fine with me, but here's the deal. The granulated sugar or the superfine sugar actually get absorbed. If you can see in this pot, which is kind of hard with the lighting, the sugar is almost completely absorbed at this point. It's already incorporated into my hot water. So it dissolved pretty easily and instantly. I'm not having a big cloudy mess. It's just clear. Okay? It's already dissolved and I don't have a lot of grit in the bottom of the pan. And that's really why it's easier if you use the granulated or superfine sugar. To do that, I am going to add my pine needles. And what I've done is I've taken these, and even though some of the farcicles may be together, I've taken them off the stem. And I'm going to explain why in a minute after I get these in. Now, you can do one of 2 things. If you're using any kind of stem or woody bit, then you really should kind of boil it for a bit. Because I'm using the needles, then which are technically leaves, what I can just do is dump them in here. I can even turn the heat off at this point if I like, but I really just want everything to be covered, saturated, and then you just want it to soak. So I really think My goodness, I wish you could smell the pine that just like hit up off of that when I put the pine in. Basically what you want these to do is steep. And just like if you were dealing with an herbal tea, how they need to steep for quite a while, 20 minutes minimum. But realistically, if you can put this, transfer it into another bowl and cover it and let it steep overnight, would be even better. Really what you want is pine and the oils and things, they extract in alcohol, but they also extract in water really well. So if you can leave it overnight, somewhere cool, somewhere where it's covered, nobody's going to bother it, then you're going to get the best flavor out of this. Okay, now, and that's pretty much it. Okay, then after you let it steep and it becomes strong, you'll get that taste of pine. That's actually already started to come into the sugar mix. I can taste it already. But you really want the flavor to be strong because you want it to be a syrup that when you add it to other things, people can definitely taste that piney bit about it. So there are some things that I wanted to say about that. Number one is, even though I use the pine needles, I do save the little branches. Why? If you start using roots or branches, then you really need to chop them up finely, and then you really need to boil them to be able to extract everything out. So realistically, on that option, then you would cut these finely, you would throw them in the pot, and you would boil them with water before you added the sugar if you wanted to do it that way. But the reason that I save them is for two things. One is, if you dry these out and then you kind of powder them up, if you have a really powerful food processor or just a chopper will do it, then you can use the dried and powdered version in order to make your own pine cones or pine incense. So that's number one. The second is, if you have friends that have fireplaces and these dry out, these make great little kindling things that you can add in. You get that burst of fresh pine scent while you're burning the fire. The reason I wanted to show you the simple syrup and this easy recipe is because it's applicable to a number of other things. For example, if you want to use it, it doesn't have to just be used for cocktails. I actually made this because I have created a little cocktail and I'm calling it the Forest Bellini. And basically what it will be is champagne or Prosecco topped with a little bit of cranberry, because we're keeping it holiday themed, and then you will add the simple syrup of pine. So you will have that pine, cranberry, a little bubbles. It's festive. If you don't drink and you want to do it on top of club soda, then it will do the same kind of thing, but you get a festive, light, refreshing drink that has that flavor of the season. So that's number one. But you can also, this is kind of for people that actually want to do a more elevated mixed drink, is having a simple syrup already. It takes very little time. You can do it the night before. You can actually do this quite a bit before, and you can put it in the refrigerator and it will keep for like a month or so. Usually it doesn't last in this house that long, because if we have people over, we're topping off drinks with it, or sometimes I'll just have, club soda and dump it on top just to give me a different flavor. Because you're not going to find pine flavored club soda in the supermarket now, are you? But you can also apply this to a number of other things. For example, if you like the flavor of lemongrass, you can do the same thing with lemongrass. And that would be great for not only a cocktail, but if you want to add it to a dessert. And it also has a benefit of helping with colds or flus or digestion. Or you can do it with hibiscus. Hibiscus is lovely and festive, especially if you're having a girls' night, because after you put the hibiscus in the boiling hot water, it's going to turn everything kind of pink. So it's a lovely pink shade. It's got tons of vitamin C. It's also great as an antispasmodic, so if you're having any kind of cramping issues, it'll help with that. And it also can help to boost immunity. It does tend to lower blood pressure, so if you're on blood pressure medications, and this is a syrup, let's face it, you're not going to go out, unless you're Buddy the Elf, you're not going to go out glugging, lots of maple syrup or any other kind of syrup. You're kind of using it as a garnish, so you should be okay with that. You could also try something like passion flower. Passion flower too can help lower blood pressure, but it also can help ease anxiety. So these are all little things. Other thing is, because it is cold and flu season, if you just want to have a syrup made up not only for cocktails but for use in other things, how about thyme? Thyme or orange and clove is also a really good blend. They're great for the winter, and they also work really well to ease congestion. So if you make it up, and you can just make these up ahead. Thyme and orange and clove, either orange and clove together or all three of them together works really well, because I like the burst of citrus with thyme. And thyme always has kind of a lemony taste to me, or maybe that's just me mentally, but I like lemon and thyme together, but thyme and orange and clove, all those things together work really well for congestion. So if you want to just make up a syrup and give to your friends, if you have somebody that always suffers from, say, bronchitis. So if you have somebody that suffers from chronic bronchitis or chest issues, it's a great one to have, because some people just really, even though it has wonderful beneficial effects, do not like honey. So if you have a syrup made up that has some of these wonderful herbs that give their benefits to it, it's a great way to add it into tea and make it easy, simple for somebody to take, and they're getting the health benefits while at the same time getting a little tasty burst into their regular cup of tea. You can also try something like basil. I'm not a really big fan of basil, only because I'm not an anisette kind of person. That flavor is just not something that works too well for me. But basil and lemon are really great as far as being an anti-inflammatory. They're also adaptogen herbs, so they work really well if people are stressed out. And around the holidays, trying to pull it all together, come on, who isn't? So it works really well for that. Plus it has tons of antioxidants as well. So those are just some ideas of other herbs that you can create a simple syrup with. I'm creating this specifically because when people come over to the house and you have a glass of champagne, I just think it adds a little lift to an otherwise just kind of boring glass of bubbles. And around the holiday season, I think everybody wants that little extra sparkle. And it's also just a great pine flavor. It's not something that a lot of people think about doing, but it is seriously easy to do. So I hope that you will take some of these tips, and now that you know how to make a simple syrup, again, it's just a 1-to-1-to-1. So 1 part water to 1 part granulated sugar to 1 part of whatever the herb that you're using. And realistically, if you're dealing with a smaller herb, if you're dealing with thyme, you probably don't need in a cup of sugar and a cup of water a full cup of thyme. You can probably get away with a half cup. The thing is, you just want the flavor to be intense, and you're gonna afterwards extract all the herbal matter that you used anyway, but you just really want a nice strong flavor, so when people taste it, it's not like, what is this, like sugar water? No, it really has to have a nice flavor of the actual plant matter that you used. So that is it for the day. I hope it was helpful and at least festive. If you make up a simple syrup, it is one of the quickest ways to zhuzh up a plain pound cake. If you get caught, and I have before, where people are coming over and they kind of plant themselves at your house and they want a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and you have made bugger all and feel like you need to serve like something to go with the coffee or cake, keep a pound cake in the house. And what you can do, especially if you do like the orange clove one, or even a thyme one, or even like the passion flower, keep that simple syrup, and then you can just warm the syrup, poke some holes in the top of the cake, pour the syrup over, and let it sit so it kind of dries out a little bit. And it will give a tremendous flavor to even a lackluster store-bought cake and impress the heck out of people that just rocked up at your house. So not only do you look like you're incredibly sociable, looks like you are seriously in like the Martha Stewart Guild of having it together to impress your guests. These are just little tips and tricks that I hope will help you keep it together over the holidays. So thanks very much. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, just try and be better people.